Panthers taking the nation. A prototype for a new generation is what you face with Cam Newton as the quarterback. Tom Brady and the others, they don't want none of that. That Superman with the shoulder pads. Best believe he's the best in the league, the best that you have. Now watch the kid go and dab on him. Spread his wings out, run around the field while they grab on him. The league's freaking out, they try to blast on him. Do a flip in the end zone, wrapped on him. So toss the kid a football while he pulls on him. Superman shirt off, he plays on him.
Yo, what's up, Panther Nation? This is your boy, the Professor, a.k.a. Tony Dunn, and this is the C3 Podcast, brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com. You're listening to Panthers Ball by Max Arsenal, featuring Ant B. You can find the attributes in the comments section on YouTube. What a great and look, we always love when Panther fans show their gifts and their talents, and as you can hear, we're excited because them Panthers ball. And what's balling tonight, folks, is the C3 Podcast. I'm here with my homeboy, Mel Mayock. What is up, my friend?
What's happening, Tony? It's Tuesday night, man. You know what that means. That's Carolina Cat Chronicles bringing you live Carolina Panthers talk every Tuesday night, 52 weeks a year, man. It's pretty exciting. It's Combine week, which means we're entering draft season. You know I love the draft. And, I'm real excited to have our guest on here tonight.
Well, we've got a special guest tonight, Sam Gold from NFLBreakdowns.com. Welcome to the show, Sam. I call you Mr. Money.
Mr. Money's all right with me. Well, thanks for inviting me to the show, guys. I'm happy to be here.
Tonight's show, guys, is titled, this is episode 16.2, second episode of the season, and tonight's show is Dave Gettleman, keynote speaker at the Underwear Olympics. And tonight we're going to be talking about the Carolina Panthers in general as a team, some of their styles of play, and trying to understand their schemes a little bit better and the nuts and bolts, or maybe the coaching philosophy, should I say, in preparation for the NFL Combine, unrestricted free agency. And Dave Gettleman is the scout of scouts. He's a guy that has a history of scouting. That's how he came up through the ranks. He's a football guy, and he's going to address the media on Thursday at 1:15. And we know Gettleman. It's Meshuggah. It's crazy, but he's super honest. And we're going to kind of try to see if we can then glean anything from his comments this year and last year and try to get into what this coaching team is trying to do. Wow, that's a lot to talk about. You can follow us on Twitter at @cat_chronicles. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and sub up. And later on, listening on iTunes and Stitcher, iTunes Radio, please give us a damn share. It's the off season. We've got to stick together and build this Panther Nation together. Mel, you've been excited about NFLBreakdowns.com and Sam Gold coming on to the show. Why is that? Because we're going to have Sam introduce himself, but why have you been so excited? Because you be talking this guy up all the time.
Well, you know I love our website, Tony, and what makes our website special is we are fans just like everybody else out there, and we're the voice of Panther Nation. That's our shtick. We don't pretend to be journalists, and we don't pretend to be X's and O's experts. Now, we have some writers like Willie out there at Chocolate Wonderland, who's very good X's and O's guy. But we're really more about the details of what's going on with the Panthers, the excitement, the love affair with our team. That's what we're all about. And then when I find somebody who just obviously knows what the heck they're talking about, just at a deep level with X's and O's and schemes and what was going on in the play and what somebody was trying to do, it impresses me. And there's an article out there on NFLBreakdowns.com, and I encourage everybody out there, go check it out. But the specific article out there that I want to bring up in just a minute. But before we do that, why don't we turn it over to Sam. Sam, if you would, just kind of introduce yourself, and I think our fans out there would love to kind of hear where NFL Breakdowns came from, how long you've been around, and why did you get into this X's and O's as much as you have?
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, thanks for asking me about that. Yeah, so again, my name is Sam Gold, and the website's NFLBreakdowns.com. I've been running the website for about a year and a half now, and NFLBreakdowns.com we're mainly about film analysis. We have all of the writers, we all have access to NFL Game Rewind or NFL Game Pass as it is now, and basically all of the writers, we all love just talking the deep level about football, going through X's and O's, looking at different coverages, just understanding the schematics of each play. And that's pretty much what we like to teach on the website is going over the basics of a play, understanding how a player fits into it. We have a beginner series so we can talk about understanding the different, getting into the basic levels of the game. We're going to be filling that out more and more over the summer as well. And then additionally, we love doing player breakdowns as well. So during the season, we did a Quan Short one. We also did a couple of Josh Norman articles, and we'll be doing some more Cam Newton articles over the summer as well.
Do
Awesome.
you think that I feel like, and this is why I like you secretly, is all the things Mel said, but I feel like you really give the Panthers some love on your website, and not from the standpoint of like saying, oh, we're great and this and that, but it's great to see you break down like a guy like Kwan Short, an up-and-coming guy. I feel like that's something. I mean, how do you decide to allocate your resources? And thanks for choosing Carolina in that process.
It's a great question. Honestly, I love Sean McDermott's defense. It's one of my favorite defenses in the NFL. Basically, when I'm a Washington Redskins fan, that's my background. And when we were actually looking for a new coach, we were kind of deciding between Jay Gruden, and we also interviewed Sean McDermott. He was apparently one of our top contenders for the spot. Then if you go back through the history, you can basically see how Jay Gruden was kind of a perfect fit in the team, just basically by his connections with our owner and our general manager. But the thing that stuck out to me was Sean McDermott's ability to basically build the defense around him and basically take players more of unknown commodities. You know, Josh Norman, he was a 5th-round prospect or a 6th-round prospect, and basically build a team around their strengths. And that's something I love seeing, so I wanted to basically pay closer attention to it.
Well, hey Sam, we gotta tell you, we got this following of what we call the C3 Girl Gang, and they apparently like you, man.
Nice.
Thumbs up, he's cute type of comment out there. So welcome to C3 land.
All right, let's get into. All right, so when you say this, when you say that you like Sean McDermott's defense, and obviously we do too, and we're glad actually that he, didn't field any major interviews this offseason, even with Philadelphia, which a lot of people thought he was going back to, or could be a landing spot.
I'm so glad he didn't go to Philly.
I bet so. What sticks out other than tell us about just some of the basic philosophy behind Sean McDermott's defense. What I think of it is I see him this year we tended to blitz more than I thought that he was comfortable with or that he enjoyed to. I feel like he is a zone, and I don't know anything about the X's O's, but I think about him. It's a zone guy that tries to get after you with his front four and then lets those linebackers kind of just react to the play. What do you see about the philosophy and style behind his defense?
I think you had a really good summary of the defense, and I can corroborate that with some more evidence. As you said, it's a 4-man rush that you send on a lot of the plays. Actually, going through the playoffs, what I noticed was that you guys also did a lot of only 3-man rushes where you would only send, Kwan Short, you'd only send, Star Latua, you'd only send Coney Ely out there to blitz while you had Charles Johnson, float into an underneath zone. And that's what I find fascinating is you're able to get pressure with those 3 guys because that's very difficult. I know, for example, the Redskins tried to do that a bunch of times and it never worked. But with those 3 guys, Coney Ely, he had such a great Super Bowl performance. And I'm so excited to see him, what he's going to develop into next year. But overall, it's a 4-3 base defense where the vast majority of the time you're in a nickel formation, which means that you take out a linebacker and you put an extra defensive back on the field. So what you're sitting at is 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, which is mainly Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly, and then you have your 5 defensive backs. The one thing that Sean McDermott does best is the variety of defensive coverages. In the Super Bowl alone, in the first 8 plays, I counted 6 different coverages. You know, cover one man, cover 2, you had cover 3 sky cloud, you had cover 4, cover 6. It was all just in back-to-back progressions where basically the only reason why the Broncos were able to complete some passes right in the beginning of the game was that Peyton Manning's just he's so quick at identifying those reads. But then the defense shored up later in the game, and you can see that. And that's something I just absolutely love about the team, is just how well they all blend together, especially in those zones, those defensive zones. Thomas Davis, and you mentioned the fact about blitzing, and that's something I did see on the film a lot, was that you'd rush your main 4 guys, which was Charles Johnson, Star Lutulule, K'Wan Short, and Coney Ely, and then you would sometimes blitz Thomas Davis off the edge, or you would take someone like Josh Norman and blitz him from the cornerback position. And you did this in the Super Bowl as well in the first couple of plays, and that's just something that, I can't really speak to say that he didn't do a lot of that last year, because I honestly didn't watch too much film of the Panthers last year, but definitely this year he did do that a lot more than I'm used to seeing for his own defense.
And what I would say is, when I think of what, in an ideal situation, what McDermott would want to do, is he doesn't want a defense that's predicated on the blitz, right? But he is a guy that tries to get a timing and a feel for when to bring that blitz, and that's why he usually brings Thomas Davis up the middle, or occasionally he switches it up between Thomas Davis and Kuechly up the middle, and then every now and then he likes to mix up with a corner or safety blitz at a kind of when he wants to change the game. But it really feels like he sits on those, what you're saying, the 4-3 defense in the zone coverage, plays that zone, and then just waits, and it's almost like a timing defense where those blitzes aren't habitual. They're almost like almost like a garnish on a meal.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. Anytime you're sending one of your inside linebackers into like a blitz around the edge or even up the middle, as you said with Davis, he's just so versatile. You can do that. Basically, anytime you do that, you leave a zone exposed. Ideally, every defensive coordinator would love to rush 3 guys and drop 8 into coverage, and that's something that every NFL defensive coordinator would absolutely love that. Does it happen? Unfortunately, you can't have that happen. You can't do that very often because you have 5 offensive linemen that will be able to block them out.
Right.
So again, it's all about that variety and being able to send that corner blitz in order to basically catch someone off guard, where you only rush 3 guys, but you'll blitz you'll blitz a cornerback or a linebacker around the edge, and drop someone else into coverage. So it's all about the threat of a blitz at any time, and that's something that was very prevalent throughout the playoff run also.
Mel, what do you think about when you hear that about McDermott's style of defense? How do you think that is? Is that dictated by our personnel, or is that his philosophy, Aaron? And then I want to get Sam to comment on that, and we'll kind of take that into what we're going to do with the draft and maybe free agency, how to do that better.
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of both. I think that's what makes Dave Gettleman such a good general manager, is you saw he did not come into the organization and just say, hey, my way or the highway, and we're cleaning house and bringing in all of my guys. He came in, looked at the talent at the coaching level and the player positions, and worked around that. So I think it's kind of a nice molding of everything between the general manager and the coaching and the personnel that's out there. I think Gettleman really listens to the schemes and the themes that the coaches are trying to employ, and then getting the right talent to go with it. I mean, K'Wan Short, you remember Dave Gettleman when he drafted him in the 2nd round said he is the best penetrator in the middle of the line in the draft this year. That's why we took him. So, I mean, that fit right in with what McDermott wants to do. So I think it's a good combination.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with Mel on this on those points. And you can even see it on the offensive side with Ron Rivera's offense. I mean, the way he utilizes the wide receivers, for example, you have Corey Philly Brown, who goes, he's kind of your deep threat, your shifty deep threat. You had Jericho Cotchery, who was kind of your third down, try to get that short yardage situation completion. Basically, Devin Funchess is still growing. I am excited about his future prospects. Hopefully he'll keep developing. And then obviously you have Greg Olson as well. He's such a great receiving threat. And he's definitely a good blocker too, or he's become a good blocker of his career.
He almost never came off the field,
Yeah, and that's something that's prevalent throughout the offense as well as the defense. Going into that, the big problem with fitting players into their exact specified roles is that it works the vast majority of the time, but it doesn't work when when good defenses and good offenses can identify exactly what your player role is, and that's exactly what happened in the Super Bowl. Was that during the regular season there's no opponent out there that could basically take away all those different unique talents. But since the Denver Broncos, they scheme so well, and their defense under Wade Phillips at 3-4 under is just so good at breaking that apart that it's almost impossible to play those roles like that. Now if you had Kelvin Benjamin out there, it could have been a game changer since he has he has such a unique skill set and adds so much more dimensionality to the game. And that's something that is definitely needed and that's why Luke Kuechly on the defensive side is so useful as well, is that he's so versatile, and he can play in pass coverage covering tight ends, and he can drop into the deep coverage, he can blitz, he can play run on the edge, and it's just having those players is what makes an above average team great.
I'm not going to talk about the Super Bowl because I'm still in mourning.
It hurts.
I'm going to continue to say this, though, is that while I do understand what you're saying about Wade Phillips' defense being legit and great, the Panthers played bad too, and the penalties and when you play, this is what I understand about a good defensive team, because the Carolina Panthers, that's kind of been historically our MO when we're successful, is that you force teams to play mistake-free. And that's the only way you can beat teams like that, because they're good enough to where it's not going to work every time, where you can't be making forced mistakes, or they're going to beat you up as it is. So penalties, drop passes, poor execution, you can't make that, and that's why the greats are great, but they are good, but we didn't play well. What though, when you looked at it and you take away the bad play by the Panthers and you add in the good play by Denver, other than Kelvin Benjamin, where did we really, not like as in the Super Bowl, but where did you see this team needing to be better? They're 15-1. How much better can you get? You lose the Super Bowl, but we're going into the draft. We're going into unrestricted free agency. What positions stand out to you saying, man, this would have really helped to have an upgrade?
I guess the first one might be the most obvious one. Quarterback. No, just kidding. Offensive line.
You almost lost it.
I am not a big fan of Michael Orr as a player. It's a great movie, but he's not the best player in my opinion. And like a lot of people are giving Mike Remmers just destroying him on Twitter and social media.
Yeah, that would be us.
Right tackle. Yeah, right. And the thing is, leading up to that game, he was one of the best right tackles in the NFL. He just obviously picked the biggest game in the season to kind of implode against one of the best pass rushers, debatably the best pass rusher in the NFL.
He gets tired. Mike Rimmer's deal is he plays good through week 10. And after about week 10, you see him start to hit a wall.
Really?
And this year, he bounced back in the playoffs because our offense just crushed it so much early. It kind of took some of the pressure off of him. But it's like week 12, 13, 14. I feel like he's getting tired. Yeah, maybe it's a strength thing. Maybe it's just people are figuring him out a little bit. Maybe
I think Darrell Williams. I think Darrell Williams will take over the right tackle spot. Hey, Sam, I'm not sure if you've done much tape on this since they didn't play much for us this year, but one of our followers, Legacy Lines, Lynn, wants to know what do you think of Stephen Hill at wide receiver or Kevin Norwood?
Ooh, nice.
Interesting questions. Stephen Hill is one of those players. I never saw him developing fully as a complete player. He had all the talent. It's just there's plenty of guys that can run that 4.4 40, but you need to be able to catch. You have to be able to run routes. You have to be able to block on the edge. You have to be able to do. There's so much more. You have to be able to read coverage. That's the most important thing that you see from these raw prospects coming out of teams like Georgia Tech, where it's all based off of the triple option, which is basically it's very hard to run that in the NFL for multiple reasons, but it's very but it doesn't. They don't teach you to basically run pro-style offensive reads, and what that means is that you don't know. As a wide receiver, you're out in your stance, and a lot of the plays are called choice routes, where you're going to read the safeties, and you're going to decide, all right, am I going to run a go route or am I going to run a post? It all depends on that deep middle safety. The middle safety stays there, you're going to run that go route and stay outside of them in order to pull them away from the middle. Or if they vacate, then you're going to run right into the middle of the open zone. And it sounds simple in theory.
No, it sounds complicated as hell. I mean, yeah. I get it. 2 decisions, but you're making it in a split second. And you got other guys that have to know what you're doing too.
Yeah, and then all that has to be communicated back to your quarterback too. And that's the biggest part, is that's where you see those 10-yard off throws where they just look at each other and like shake their head like, what just happened there? And that's exactly why you can't just take a physical talent like Stephen Hill and naturally assume that because he's talented he's going to succeed. That's why he's a boomer bust prospect from the beginning.
Yeah. Hey, Sam, I know that it's getting a little bit past your time, but one question. I'm curious to think, what did you see really different this year about Cam Newton? What do you think changed the most? Because he became, a hitter, up and down, inconsistent, incredible athlete, and became the MVP of the league. What did you see on tape?
His development in the pocket. That's one of my favorite things that he's started to learn over the past 3 years. That when you're running a system like Auburn ran, where a lot of your plays are what are called read pass options, which are actually used in the Carolina Panthers offensive game, you don't ever develop a full feel for taking your 3 to 5, 7-step drop back and then stepping up to the pocket, feeling pressure and scooting around the pocket. That's something that it takes years to develop, especially for a quarterback that didn't have that much experience like that in college. Cam Newton's ability to learn that has seriously impressed me like the most. With regard to, him and Russell Wilson also. But from Cam Newton's perspective, once he developed that gave time for the rest of his receivers to get downfield. He didn't have to rely on his legs to get outside to make plays. He basically was able to stay in the pocket, wait for someone to break open using those talents that I talked about before, like Corey Brown's deep speed or Cautry's ability to get open over the middle of the field, and he's able to hit them for an accurate shot. So pocket presence is my final answer.
Right on.
That is awesome. I got a personal question, and not a personal question for you, but like a question I'm interested in, and that is, you said that McDermott's defense with the zone and the nickel corner being so important. All right, we got Josh Norman, who has stepped up into kind of he's elite status. The question is, how long will he remain there, and is that something that Gettleman's going to sign? But our second corner was Charles Tillman for most of the year. He gets injured. We bring in some mercenary guys who actually played pretty well. And we got Ben Wickery, who's our nickel corner guy, also suffered a major injury. But we're wondering this, is Ben going to get moved to the outside eventually? So when you have a nickel a defense that's predicated so much on that formation, do you try to look for a nickel corner in maybe free agency or in the draft, or do you stick with a guy like Benet and then maybe try to keep supplementing? Do you work that second corner spot more? And I don't know if that makes sense or if even guys look at it like that.
And even as the cherry on the top to that question is Josh Norman worth elite money in Carolina Panthers scheme?
I guess I'll tackle Josh Norman first, and then I'll go back to the nickel corner question. In my opinion, yes to Josh Norman. I think he's worth elite money, especially in the Panthers scheme. If you looked back at what he did in the game, what he did in the games was that he was mainly an outside receiver, an outside cornerback, where he would follow the best wide receiver to the outside, and then if that wide receiver shifted inside, so you have a motion or he lines up in the slot, and that's what like Larry Fitzgerald did, that's what a bunch of these main receivers did, then he stayed to the outside. So that's where those wide receivers like Larry Fitzgerald or any of those type of wide receivers can get open basically against your slot corners, that although it's against your slot corner, you're still playing a lot of zone defense. So now to answer your question, yes, I think Josh Norman's scheme is, I think he's well worth it, especially because he can man that outside spot.
I agree.
So I guess going to the nickel now I said all that before. I'm answering the nickel corner question because in this defense, a lot of the defense is predicated on dropping into either a cover 4 shell, which is your 2 deep safeties, and your 2 outside corners dropping, covering that 4-man up front. People call it a prevent defense. It's not run specifically like that with the Panthers. They do a lot more press, but that's for another conversation. But the cover 3 also is a lot employed where the outside corners also drop deep. So what that means is that your slot cornerback and your linebackers will drop into zones underneath.
Okay.
So basically, Josh Norman mans that outside spot. You have someone like Kurt Coleman or Roman Harper sometimes would be deep. But who is your who's your other outside cornerback? In my opinion, that position is more important than the underneath slot defender.
Wow.
Since you don't play a lot of man-to-man coverage, since you play mostly zones and you mainly drop your outside cornerbacks deep, what's the point of drafting an underneath slot corner when you can fill that other basically CB2 position where you're playing deep? That in my opinion is where your best bang for the buck is. Okay.
Now Shaq Thompson to me throws the wild card here because you started to see, I feel like a little later in the season, and this was injury related too, that the Panthers were throwing 3 linebackers out there, but almost still playing the nickel.
Yeah, Shaq Thompson's skill set is so intriguing, and that's.
So do you think that could we maybe are we looking maybe to stick with Luke Kuechly and Shaq Thompson in the future, or are we trying to create something new maybe where we almost send Shaq into almost like a nickel? I mean, into the nickel corner spot, sort of like a linebacker doing it.
I think that's a very interesting question. I'm looking up his stats on my other screen, or basically his size on my other screen. I see he's basically 6 feet tall and around 230. That's kind of your in-between hybrid between a traditional linebacker and obviously like a strong safety. So something that you've seen with that sort of body size and that sort of physical ability is something that the Cardinals actually run with Philip Buchanan. With Deion Buchanan, not Philip. Philip Buchanan was a terrible cornerback back in the day. But anyways, Deion Buchanan, where you have the kind of a linebacker / safety playing that one of those roles where he can throw into that inside linebacker role, but also kind of drop deep and kind of play the outside zones. That's something that's in my opinion very intriguing about his skill set. The question, I guess, is that would you keep Shaq Thompson, Davis, and Kuechly on the field at the same time going forward? Or
right, like at times, like if we have trouble finding that we basically were a corner short. And if Ben A is healthy, because we're going to throw Norman out there. We're going to throw Ben A right now is in the slot. But what we need is a second corner, because you got Kurt Coleman and you put Trey Boston out there, who's pretty good. My question, I mean, like, do you basically just say, let's put Shaq, Luke Kuechly, and Thomas Davis on the field instead of just keeping Shaq in almost like a rotational role, but not change the scheme so much?
I think that could be an interesting idea. I guess the only problem I can see is that if you put an extra linebacker out there, you're either losing a little bit in your edge and run defense because you're taking away one of those defensive linemen.
Okay.
Or you're losing your edge in your defensive backs because you're losing a defensive back by having that linebacker out there. Like your main front again was that 4-2-5 we talked about before. So I guess if you did a 3-man front, used someone like Shaq Thomas and Thomas Davis to blitz, rotate blitzing roles or rotate pass rushing roles. Theoretically, I guess it's possible, but you'd basically be forfeiting a weaknesses on either side, and that's why it's kind of hard.
If I was gonna design it, I don't know how I would do it because I don't know enough about it. But I'm almost saying like this: is that you put them out there, and the personnel doesn't dictate the scheme. You just be like, sometimes Shaq, you're gonna act like a corner, and sometimes you're gonna act like a linebacker. And I think he could do it, but that's just me and my crazy thing. All right, Mel. I know Sam's time is valuable. It's gold. Hey, Mel, do you got any last comments for him before we give him his plugs and get him out of here?
No, one article we didn't get to tonight and don't have time to really break it down, but I thought was fascinating was the article one of your writers put out there about how Cam Newton has been getting hit pretty hard in the media about his performance in the Super Bowl, but actually pointed out he was the best offensive player on the field during the game. And he actually went through a lot of different reasons why, and I thought that was incredibly interesting. And I encourage all Panther fans to go out there and check it out. It's at NFLbreakdowns.com and go under the articles tab, and there's some great stuff out there. And like Tony said, there's quite a bit of Panther stuff out there, which is pretty cool. So,
Sam,
I'll turn it over to Sam. And give us your final plug. Let people know where they can find you on Twitter. Already had a couple folks out there on Twitter ask your Twitter handle, and I tweeted it out. But if you'd let everybody out there who's listening to us on their iTunes or Stitcher account, where can they find you?
Sure. You can find me at Samuel R. Gold, and you can find the website NFLbreakdowns.com, and that Twitter handle is at NFL Breakdowns. And again, thank you guys for having me on the show. When we get closer to the draft, I would love to come back on and talk about specific players, specific fits that I'd see for your team. We didn't even get to talk about Mackenzie Alexander, who's one of my favorite cornerbacks in the draft. And again, we can talk about that stuff later on when we get closer to the draft.
That's fantastic, and we will certainly have you back on the show. It was great, and you will get the support from us. And I always look for you and your articles to better understand football, because that's what I don't get. I get people.
One of my favorite shows of the year is on draft night. We actually have a big show. We bring people in. Last year we had folks coming in from the UK and all over, just checking in, 5-10 minutes talking. Love to have you on that show where you can pop in and out as you can and just kind of talk about different players and how they fit schematically.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great time. Let me know when that is.
All right. Well, thank you. That's Sam Gold, NFLbreakdowns.com, and we will catch you later on, Mel. What we're going to get on to now is we're going to talk about, if I can figure out how to do this, we're going to start talking about, and I tried to close him out, and he can, we mentioned Dave Gettleman. And how remarkably honest he was, and what
Professor, I have no idea why, man, but we just lost like 37 women from our viewership here.
Oh, shush. Shush. I put up an article, Mel, that said 7 things Dave Gettleman said at last year's combine we should have heard. And the kind of premise was behind it. I saw Jonathan Jones and Joey's the one that pointed the tweet out that Dave Gettleman's going to address the media on Thursday at 1:15. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking about that, and you know, we're not reporters, so I wasn't gonna put up the story that like this here Dave Gettleman addresses media at 1:15. So I was thinking, like, what does this mean to us, Dave Gettleman, and what he's done and the way he addresses us in the media? And he's always, we thought when we first met him, you know, the suspicious Southerners of the carpetbagger Yankee, that he had some sort of trick, that he was a smooth operator, that he had tricks up his sleeve, that he had some master plan. Turns out it's not that complicated. He's remarkably honest. He tells us what he's thinking. He says what he's thinking, what he's going to do, and he does what he says. And the crazy part is that it's so honest that we don't believe it. So I said, like, let's go back and look at what he said and try to figure out what happened. Does that strike you with Dave Gettleman at all? That he's just, what do you buy it? Is it genuine honesty or is it mashugana?
Well, you know, actually, people out there in Twitter land have been reading your article. Legacy Lines actually tweeted out, said she very much enjoyed your article. So she went out there and read it, and I agree, it was a great article. I read it, and you know, I think you're right. When he first came in, we're saying, oh, he's talking about the need for hog molly line, and he's setting everybody up, and he's going to go draft a wide receiver. Well, guess what? He double dipped and got 2 big old hog mollies. Then he was talking about you can't coach size, and it's some big wide receivers in that draft. And guess what? He went and got Kelvin Benjamin. And then last year he talked about how the running back draft, running back class was deep. He went out and got Cameron Artis-Payne in the 5th round, right? So great article. If you haven't read it, go to CarolinaCatChronicles.com. Read one of the latest articles from the professor. It talks about what he said in the past and what he actually meant. And
well, let's go through some of it and give people a little insight into it in case they did and they don't have an opportunity. Last year at the draft, before the draft, we were going crazy about the need for a left tackle. An offensive lineman, Byron Bell, was the bane of – he's the worst player in the history of football. He was the turnstile. He was the one-armed, left-armed man. And the Carolina Panthers could not move forward as an organization until this was addressed. There were a lot of offensive tackles in this. DJ Humphries is sitting there right at the board. He goes right before us, thankfully. And Dave Gettleman says, I'm not going to pick based on need. And he went and drafted a linebacker in Shaq Thompson, which was awesome. But were you puzzled by that?
I was, and we flew a contingency out there to the University of Washington and spent time with him. That's one of the telltales of who he likes. A lot of general managers will do some smoke screens, go interview somebody just to throw you off the beaten path. I thought we were going to go safety last year, but I just really thought with Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly, and we had AJ Klein, and we also had who was the other guy that we had with the Mohawk? He was
what
a good little line. I can't remember. Gladson.
Oh,
definitely was not a position.
Who are you saying again? The linebacker.
Yeah,
we had Glanton, who was.
That's what it was, Glanton.
It was like Michigan State guy or something like that. I liked him. I did.
Yeah, he was good. So it definitely proves he's not going to go just at a position of need. He's going to go after the best player on the board. So it'll be interesting to see who we take at number 30. A lot of articles, a lot of things being talked about between now and draft night.
All right. What is the position right now that Carolina has that is equivalent to last year's left tackle? So if you're going into the draft in the 2016 draft, which we are, we don't have the same, outlook we did because we went 15-1 in the season. We went to the Super Bowl. But who is the Byron Bell of this team, or should I say, what position is that position that we just have to draft in the first round?
Well, I think it's kind of simple, really. The two starting defensive ends from our Super Bowl team are probably gone. One is definitely already gone in Jared Allen, and Charles Johnson will either be gone or back at a much reduced rate, and his role will be much reduced. So as Sam was talking about, our defense is really predicated on getting pressure in that front four. And who are we going to have opposite of Coney Ealy? Now, free agency is going to play a big role, but going into the draft, as we know it today, defensive end has got to be the biggest need.
Yeah, defensive end does seem to be imperative. And that brings me to a question at Victor_Lupacero. I hope I didn't brutalize it too much. Also, AKA Bisquick_Vic, like that. He says this, are we going to restructure Big Money's contract or cut him and sign one of these pass rushers that are going to hit the market? And for me, I think it's a no-brainer that CJ is going to get restructured or cut. But I think it could be both, as in restructured and bring in somebody in free agency. Do you take the risk, Mel, of drafting a defensive end and asking him to contribute immediately? They're slow developers in the NFL. So I feel like we got to go either keep the veteran and bring in somebody to bring behind him, but he's hurt all the he's hurt. I think we have to hit free agents and bring somebody impact player, even if it's not great.
Mm-hmm. I think you got to do both. I think you got to bring somebody in, but you bring up a valid point. You don't have to get that defensive end at pick 30. Maybe you go cornerback. Maybe you go safety. It depends on who's there, really.
Right. All right. I like that. I mean, I've been dying to get a safety for 2 years now, but all right. Next on Dave Gettleman, what he said last year, it's pretty darn. He's talking about the wide receivers. It's pretty darn deep. Any shape and size, you can pick what you like. This is what I heard, Mel. I love those big guys, and we're looking at one big, tall receiver to pair alongside Kelvin Benjamin. It's going to be bunches of funches when that happens because big bodies win the NFL. Mm-hmm. He said, look, you can get – he said this. He said, you can get whatever size and shape you want, and then he traded up and got a giant receiver. Sounds like he was telling us what he was going to do.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And I thought about that too. If you look at how the Panthers are built compared to, say, how the Saints are built, we like big guys in the trenches, wide receiver, quarterback, linebackers, defensive backs, and the Saints are smaller, scat types of guys, right? I mean, they got Mach 7 at wide receiver that we wanted a couple years ago, but Gettleman wanted to go bigger and, went with Kelvin Benjamin, and thankfully so. So, yeah, I think he kind of tipped his hand, but it's easy to see that too in hindsight too. So it'll be interesting to talk about after this conference on Thursday, what did we pick up for it? So maybe next Tuesday we can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly he's not going to chase the easy pick. And what I mean by that is the kind of the fool's gold of picks is that sometimes you feel peer pressured. There's an insecurity in the way underlying your decision making that makes you want to, I guess, succumb to herd thinking. Jamie Dukes, you hear the chirping and all that. It's like the muses of the media are luring you into this. And Dave Gettleman's pretty like, meat and potatoes type dude, just it's not that difficult, folks. It's not that complicated. You look at these guys, we beat you up, and we pick whoever the biggest, strongest, baddest dude at his position is at the moment.
That's right.
All right.
Right.
Let's see. Where else are we going with this? I feel like what else did he? All right, one more. We'll do one more Dave Gettleman, what he said and what I heard. He said this, and he said this every year. My philosophy on unrestricted free agency is use that to set up your draft. This is what I heard. I'm not handcuffing this team in this draft to be forced into drafting a position of need. I'm going out there and getting some vets who I know can play, like Michael Orr, Kurt Coleman, and Peanut Tillman, which gives us the latitude then to go and pick the best player available. So that's what he said. That's what I heard. And this is what I want to apply, Mel, to where we're going to in this unrestricted free agency. I truly believe we go after a defensive end in free agency, not because it's the sexy addition, but we need to have some depth at there so we don't have to draft defensive ends in the first round no matter what.
Who are some of the DNs that you like out there? Because I agree with you. I would not be surprised at all. We're going to be $40 million under the cap. Who do you go out?
I think you got to try. I want to find – what I want to do is if I want Gettleman to find a second tier, a guy that's on the cusp of being in the top, but not. Right? So think about who Michael Orr is as an offensive lineman. He's had success in the NFL. He got some injuries. He had a couple of tough seasons. But overall, he's a player that can get out there and play pretty well. Not great.
Yeah, he had a pretty good year.
But not a liability, though, either, too much. So I'm trying to think of who that is. The Olivia, what is it? The guy from Miami.
Olivier Vernon, which that could be intriguing.
I like that player, but I almost think is the name itself too cosmopolitan. And is he going to command too much money?
Unlike Chosen Newton, right?
Right. I think that who's the other guy out of New York? Not JPP, the other guy that kind of broke out this year.
Oh man.
We had it earlier. Look, we getting this. What is this? Sam, this is Smoke Wagon. Smoke Wagon's watching the show. Sam Slater.
What's up,
he
bud?
said, watch out for Quentin Copels.
He was somebody I was going to bring up. He kind of fits that Michael Orr mode. Had a lot
That's
of
what I'm talking about.
And then kind of fell off, and absolutely.
He's a that's what he says. This Copels will be the kind of reclamation project Dave does. # Michael Orr. See, I don't think we go after a guy like the Vernon, or there's another guy from New York. And I think he's the kind of fool's gold because he had a good season this year. His other seasons were okay. They were kind of like a 6-sack type season, but nothing fantastic. I was thinking JPP might be a guy too.
Yeah, at the right price for sure. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like that idea, but I do.
All right, a lot of people liking Copels. Let's roll with this Copels discussion. He's from He played at UNC Chapel Hill. He was brought into the New York Jets to play in a 3-4 style defense where sometimes he put his hand in the dirt, sometimes he dropped into coverage.
There were a lot of people that wanted him. He was in the draft the year that we took Luke Kuechly, and we went and visited with him the night before the draft. I remember Rivera drove to his house, and they did some real vetting just the day before the draft. So, but thankfully they went with Luke Kuechly.
How does a guy like that, how could he, all right, so reclamation project. So say you get this, is you get a guy that, was in an organization that kind of so fluid at the moment. So many changes, maybe a little overhype, and that that the media maybe latched on to him as being more exciting than he maybe was ready to be. It's kind of his time where he's gotten some years under his belt. He may have been humbled a little bit, getting stronger. How do you use a guy like that in Carolina? We heard what Sam had to say. We like to rush 4, but we maybe even tried to rush 3. Is that a guy you throw out there with Coney Ely, K1 Short, or maybe even K1 Short star, and Ely rushing, and then Copel's almost considering dropping back at times?
Yeah, a lot of times players' success in the NFL depends on being put into the right scheme. I mean, how many times have you seen somebody not do well at one time and then gets brought somewhere else and takes off? And, putting Copels as a 3-4 defensive end, that's not his strength, dropping him back in coverage and all of that. Put the man's hand in the dirt and let him get after the QB. So he could be somebody whose stock is down. We could probably get him on a pretty moderate type of contract, and he's somebody that really could take off. He could be one of those diamonds in the rough.
Do you see him? If I was going to put him, like, the way I look at it is there is the Coney Ely type defensive end, and then there's the Mario Addison defensive end. Coney Ely can slip inside and play defensive tackle if needed a little bit. And he also can try to beat you on the outside. But I feel like Mario Addison's game is a game predicated on speed. Where do you see, and I'd like to hear from people on YouTube and Twitter about this, is how does Copels fit into that analogy? Is he in between those two guys? Is he a guy that is, you said he can't, maybe dropping back into coverage wasn't the best fit for him. Is he going to try to speed rush you to death like Von Miller almost?
I really can't say with authority because I have not broken down, but I think he was a good, quick, versatile, a lot like a Frank Alexander. Somebody who's strong and just kind of bull rushes and have some moves, but isn't somebody's going to have the quickest feet to drop back into coverage.
Okay. I always felt like they wanted him to be what almost like kind of like what Peppers could have done.
He is 6'6", 285 pounds.
Is he that big?
That big. So you take somebody 6'6", 285. Yes, he is. I'm
looking at it. I'm looking it up. Have you already looked it up?
And you know where he's from? He's from Kinston. So,
that's right. He is from Kinston. I forgot about that. And I brought that up. God, he is 200 and they have him listed at 290.
Yeah, see, that's what happens.
We need Copels. We need Copels. I thought he was more. I didn't remember him being that heavy. Oh
so,
my God.
He is basically Julius Peppers' size. To a scheme that fit his skills.
That's a Carolina kid coming back. He's a backyard baller.
Yeah. Yeah. Great job, Smoke Wagon. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one.
I do. And you know what? He's a guy too where you can bring him in and he hasn't had enough success to command a position.
Right.
So
he'll get a mid-level contract.
You bring him in and he's got to compete rather than, and that's what I don't want us to do. If we draft a guy without bringing in somebody, or at least having enough, maybe Charles Johnson's laying around to where we need we cannot have a rookie and expect them to produce in the first year. It's any team that does that, you hope it happens, but you can't depend on it.
Yeah. But I think it would be good to bring a rookie in and let him work his way into the rotation. Have somebody like a Copels or a JPP in front of him, and then let this guy compete throughout the year and get better. Another guy out there that's really good, if he's healthy, is Chris Long, got released by the Rams. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that are going to get different looks. He's a bit smaller guy. He's 6'3", 260, 265. But he's an animal if he's healthy.
Yeah, but he's battled injuries. He's had 2 bad seasons. A lot of people, and I know JP, you call him the Pope, right?
Yeah.
The Pope, he don't like Long. He thinks he's washed up, I believe. I was gonna look up something. Was New York Giants. Keep talk while I look for something because we're almost done.
Yeah, well, I mean, this free agency period is going to be interesting. It gets started March 7th, and then you can start signing. You know, the draft isn't until the end of April, so it's a lot of speculation about the draft right now. But what we do in free agency between March 7th and the draft is going to tell you a lot, right? He's probably is going to go out and try to sign a Quentin Coples type of player, JPP possibly. Chris Long could be in the mix. Some of these guys that get it on a 1 or 2 year prove it type of deal. And then that'll set up the draft, and we'll have a lot better idea when you get into the middle of April what the draft's going to look like.
All right. Okay, look, I think I may have found a list of defensive ends. First of all, the guy I was talking about in New York was Robert Ayers.
Yes.
But I think he's going to cost way too much money. I think he's going to cost more money than he's worth, while I think Coples, like we could say, what Gettleman tries to do is pay people less than they're worth, not because he's lowballing them, but he's not trying to find a guy coming in with the hype. He's trying to find a guy that we can build some hype out of.
He's trying to find value.
All right, so here's a list of unrestricted defensive unrestricted free agents, defensive ends: Robert Ayers, Jason Babin, Stephen Bowen, Taquan Bowers, Andre Branch from Jacksonville, Alex Carrington from Buffalo, Adrian Claiborne. I don't know any of these guys. Chris Clemens from Jacksonville. He gave us some fits early in the season. Jack, I don't know these guys. Gosh, who the hell is Larry English? I feel like I should know him. He's from Tampa Bay.
He played for the Harlem Globetrotters, didn't he?
Or he was a member of like British Parliament at some point. Greg Hardy.
One Bruce Irvin. Bruce Irvin is a free agent out of Seattle, and they're probably not going to be able to afford to sign him. If we could get Bruce Irvin, he's a speed rusher that we could take away from one of our rivals in the NFC. I think it would be a good signing.
I'm trying to think, who the heck are these people? Who's Cedric Thornton from the Eagles? Should we know him? Daryl Tapp, don't know him. Muhammad Wilkerson's out there, but he's like a defensive tackle, right?
Yeah, he's a stud though.
I think we're on to it. It's Coples. What do you guys think? What do you think about the Jacksonville dude, Chris Clemens? Is he? He's a rotational guy.
Yeah, it's all going to be about value. What type of money we can get him for?
Smoke Wagon says I like Ayers, but he's going to re-sign with New York probably. All right. Yeah. Okay, this is the end of the show. It's 11 o'clock. We got to do our ice up picks and get out of here for the night. Mel, did you bring a nice up pick this week?
I did, as always. But before we do that, shout out to our boy Joe Riolano, man. I know you're kicking back, resting up after a little medical work done today. Hope you're feeling better, buddy. We'll see you back next week, hopefully. But as far as ice up pick, do you know what today is? You have any idea? You know how every day has some type of day to it.
Oh, yes, I do know it today. It's National Toast Day.
National Toast Day. And, I could ice up the fact that there is actually a National Toast Day. I mean, it's kind of crazy if you think about it. But anytime I get a chance.
Is this here toast, or is this like burnt toast?
It's like burnt toast, like bread in the toaster.
Oh, okay.
All right. Which makes very little sense. But really, anytime I get a chance to bring something crazy like that and ice up our most hated rival, the Atlanta Falcons, I'm going to do it. So on National Toast Day, the Atlanta Falcons, did you see their tweet today? They actually
yes.
tweeted Happy National Toast Day, hashtag National Toast Day, and they showed a GIF, a little video of Julio Jones catching that deep bomb over Luke Kuechly and running down the sideline.
Did he? I thought we got them first.
So,
did you not see the Panthers one?
I didn't see the Panthers one.
Oh, man, I think the Panthers, you got to see if the Panthers beat them to the punch. They showed Ted Ginn catching the 80-yard bomb on them.
I did see that. Yes, I think it was after the Falcons. I think they started. But to me, if you're going to be 8-8 and you're going to be 7 games out of first place, yes, you are the 1 in 15-1. But you're 7 games out of first place. So to go, I know it's all in good fun, and I think it was kind of funny. But at the end of the day, Atlanta Falcons, ice up, son.
This might echo. If it does, let me know. But listen to this. Tell me if you can hear this, by the way. Hold on. There's an ad. Overtalk the ad. I'm about to play.
You pay us to get the ad on the air. Pay us.
Could you hear that?
It's what you do if you want.
Those words?
No.
Hold on. All right, hold on. Let me see if you get it now. Can you hear this?
Yeah.
All right. Hold on.
People always saying, what do you like most? I don't want to brag. I don't want to boast. I always tell them I like toast. Yeah, toast! Yeah, toast! I get up in the morning about
Where
6.
is that?
That is Haywood Banks. Yeah, toast. French toast. Burnt toast. It's funny. By the way, that is a rendition that sounds a lot like Primus meets National Toast Day.
Nice.
Okay, so ice up to the Falcons and their toast because we toasted y'all. And second, all right, my ice up pick of the week goes to Indian guy who calls me up every couple of weeks and tells me my computer has got a virus or is infected or is compromised.
Let me guess. His name is Bill.
I don't know. Yeah, probably. But he always says Bill to where I can't understand it. I don't got any problem with Indian dudes. I do have a problem with Indian slut dudes or sounding Indian dudes who try to call people and take advantage of poor, susceptible people all the time. But I'm starting to even get tired of myself because now at first I got angry and I would tell these people like how I feel, how bad you should feel about trying to swindle people. They always call you up and they're like, we're with Microsoft and there is signs of compromise on your computer. And then they trying to get people to freak out. So this happened to me over and over, Mel. Over and over they call. And over I do, ranging from one time I said, oh my God, my computer has a virus. Is it contagious? Is my family safe? So I try to poke back a little bit. Sometimes most of the time I play stupid. And that is today he called up and he said, have you been checking your computer logs? Because there is compromise. And I said, logs, like that, a book that came with the computer? And he said, no, not a book, like your computer logs. And I was like, is this paperback or hardback? I go on and on. They hang up on you, but what kind of jackasses sit around calling Americans every day looking for a poor old lady or man who got their computer and checks their email and believes that their computer is compromised and watching them? So to you, Indian scam artist who smells like cheap curry. Ice up.
Well done, man. I think they might be related to the Nigerian prince that keeps emailing me too.
That's right. Okay, Mel, tell them as I cue the music from Panthers Ball. The music is fan-produced music. I want everybody to go out on YouTube and find Ant, A-N-T, B, as in Ant, second name B, Productions, Max Arsenal, featuring Ant B, and this is called Panthers Ball. But while I'm playing the music, Mel, you can tell them where they can find you and get in touch with you.
Right on. You can always find me on Twitter at Panthers Drafter. Out there talking Panthers football all the time. I'll talk anything with you. Hit me up. Also, I'm the Panthers analyst out at drafttech.com. There's a mock draft that comes out every week this time of year on Thursdays. You'll get to see my write-ups. Great. CarolinaCatChronicles.com every day. Check out just like the one that we talked about on the show tonight from Tony. Really good insights. Also, hey, go up, hit the shop tab, see what T-shirts, what cam wows we have there. And if you're buying anybody any type of gift, do it through the Amazon tab under shop on Carolina Cat Chronicles. You'll help us out just a little bit. Doesn't cost you any more, and we really appreciate it. Hey, another great show, Tony. Thanks a lot, bud.
Word up. This is the C3 podcast brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com. You can find us every Tuesday night talking Panthers football from the fan perspective, because without us, guys, football is just a kid's game. I'm the professor. This is about the fan, and we're going to go out tonight with a little fan music.
Nice. I like that.
Now dab on 'em. Put your face in your arm, throw a slab on 'em. Now dab on 'em. Now dab on 'em. Throw the ball, throw the arm, throw the back on 'em. To the left, to the left, to the right, to the right, to the front, to the front, to the back, to the back. Now dip, dive, dab, dab. Now dip, dive, dab, dab. Again, Brown, Devin, and Jericho, Greg Olsen. Now there we go. Add a bit of Big Mike, that's a merry-go. I round up with Jay Stu, now where he go? Michael O. blindsided in his habitat. I'm sure Graham Gano get a kick out of that. Carolina Nation, we're a new breed. The only thing we try to do is win a few rings.